Take a good look at this hallway. Polished floors, fluorescent hum, doors that lead to classrooms, storage closets, offices where nothing dramatic ever happens. It could be any church after midnight, silent except for the distant snare drum rattle of rain against the roof. Nothing in this frame seems extraordinary until it moves. A figure steps out from a shadow and drifts across camera. Helmet, gloves, a heavy vest flashing one loaded word, police. The person's right foot points outward a touch, an odd, open-toed compass needle, and with each step they seem to steady themselves on the wall like a passenger learning the sway of a ship. No hurry, no theft, just presence, a rehearsal in boots. In the hours to come, those images would ignite the internet, split investigators, and carve a permanent notch in true crime history. But at 3:50 a.m. on April 18, 2016, inside a church in Midlothian, Texas, only one person knew what they meant, and they did not speak. Viewer discretion is advised. What follows is a reconstruction based on public records, police statements, and the clockwork accuracy of security cameras, a story where nearly everything is seen, yet almost nothing is certain. Missy Bevers was the kind of early riser who made other early risers feel lazy. 45, mother of 3, former special education teacher turned fitness coach. She ran pre-dawn boot camps that drew regulars before the sun remembered its job. A thunderstorm was chewing on North Texas that night, and the evening before she messaged her group, "We're moving indoors, same time, same grind." Around 4 in the morning, Missy loaded kettlebells and mats, then drove through wind-pushed rain toward the church. She had done this routine 100 times. Routine is comfort. Routine is camouflage. The church was dark when she arrived. She parked. She carried the gear inside. At 4:18 a.m., a ceiling camera caught her silhouette entering the corridor that would soon fill every screen in the city. What Missy couldn't know was that someone had been inside for at least half an hour. A different camera, static, clinical, indifferent, had already recorded them jiggling knobs, testing doors, smashing small squares of glass, and performing a patrol that looked like burglary but felt like waiting. The intruder moved as if this place had been studied, where the dead corners were, where the reflections made cheap mirrors, where the cameras were blind. CCTV is an unforgiving storyteller. It never remembers the smell of wet carpet or the tremor in a breath, but it times the steps. It confirms that at 4:18 Missy entered alone. It fails to show the critical seconds when 2 paths crossed. Those frames have never been made public, but it shows what came after. The silence when her students arrived around 4:35 and found a scene that would never leave them. Paramedics could not reverse what had been done. The wounds were sharp, blunt, and deliberate. The gear she had unloaded lay near where she fell. In a building meant for sanctuary, someone had engineered an ambush. From the first minute, investigators faced a paradox, a crime that looked like a sloppy break-in, wrapped in the precision of timing you only get from a schedule. Nothing was taken. Nothing about the intruder's movements suggested panic. The police vest was either armor or theater. The pry-bar scars on doorframes spelled break-in for anyone who needed a headline, but the handwriting was too neat. Cameras outside the church glitched that night, starving detectives of the one angle they would have begged for. Inside, though, the lenses never blinked. The world now had a haunting, a person in tactical costume pacing halls before dawn, and a mother who walked in believing this was just another wet floor morning. In a few minutes, the internet would look at that strange outward-turned foot and try to turn it into a face. When the police released select clips from inside the church, the public locked onto one detail like a tuning fork: the walk. It was a lilt, not a limp, a turn of the right foot outward, shoulders that pitched without hurry. The intruder's gloved hand sometimes carried a small hammer, sometimes a tool with the blunt certainty of a pry-bar. None of it screamed professional burglary. It whispered performance. Profiles began to accumulate in coffee shops and comment threads. Some saw a man, broad through the vest. Others saw a woman, judging by posture and hip carriage. The truth was that the outfit did its job. It erased difference. Helmet, gloves, heavy vest over bulky layers, gender and build were reduced to guesswork. A police label announced authority, while the behavior undercut it. Tug a handle, smash a window panel you have no intention of climbing through, pause to examine a display case as if you just remembered to act curious. Investigators brought in a forensic podiatrist, someone who specializes in feet and gait patterns, to watch the footage, analyze motion, and answer the internet's loudest question. Did that outward-turned foot mean anything? His conclusion: yes and no. The gait was odd, but odd is not rare. Foot pointing can be a habit, an injury, a response to heavy gear, even a deliberate affectation. You cannot identify sex from gait alone, and you can match a dozen people to a walk if you want it badly enough. What could be said with confidence was much more chilling. Whoever this person was, they had arrived early. They had entered by force well before Missy ever parked. They moved with the kind of rehearsed calm you only see in two scenarios: a professional following a plan, or an amateur who has rehearsed so many times that the plan has worn grooves. They seemed to be measuring the building's pulse, not its valuables. Consider the timing. Missy's class was scheduled for 5 a.m. She arrived around 4:15, 4:18 to set up. The intruder appears on camera around 3:50. That is not luck. That is not, I hope someone shows up. That is, I know when someone shows up. If theft was the motive, the storm was free cover and electronics were plentiful, yet nothing left the building. If chaos was the point, there are easier places to announce yourself. Instead, the intruder worked inside a quiet maze of hallways until the exact person they were waiting for arrived. The object in the intruder's hand likely became the weapon. That is not a deduction from imagination, but from injuries. The blows were focused, the wounds consistent with something like a hammer. But the footage, the part the public never got, remains with investigators. Whether to protect the integrity of leads or to shield the students and family from the worst of it, law enforcement never released those frames. The gap formed a vacuum, and the vacuum filled with theories. Then there is the costume. SWAT-style gear projects competence. Paired with a shambling gait, it projects misdirection. Imagine crossing paths with this person in a hallway. Your brain would default to compliance. You would assume they belong. That psychological advantage is priceless. One of the strangest features of the footage is how the intruder breaks glass without using the openings, tests doors without entering rooms, and spends more energy creating the image of a break-in than achieving one. Theatrics are part of the plan. We often talk about CCTV as neutral truth, but it is also stage lighting. It crops reality into the rectangle it can see. It turns a body into a silhouette and converts intent into pixels. In Midlothian, the cameras kept perfect time, but imperfect meaning. Investigators would need the other half, messages, schedules, vehicles, relationships, to give those steps a motive. Additional analysis: what cameras give and what they take. Security cameras flatten depth and can warp size. Frame rate, lens width, and lighting can all exaggerate a foot angle or a shoulder line. A walk that looks like a permanent limp can be a two-frame artifact. Good investigations repeat the lighting and angles, then film test subjects in similar gear to see what survives. In Midlothian, the odd gait still survived, just not as a signature strong enough to name someone. Missy's life was partly offline, kids, errands, workouts, and partly logged where modern life keeps its receipts, social media and messaging apps. She used Facebook groups to talk to her clients, posted class updates, encouraged regulars, and made the sort of public-facing schedule that helps a community show up. It also helps anyone else. In the weeks before the murder, she received messages on LinkedIn from a man she did not appear to know well. Friends later described the messages as creepy, the kind of tone that makes you check the door twice. Police tracked the sender down and officially downplayed the significance. The conversation, they said, appeared innocuous. But even when a dead end is officially closed, the impression that someone has been orbiting never quite leaves the room. Investigators leaned into the other timelines: storms, door entry logs, student arrivals. They tried to build an hour-by-hour diagram where every line ends somewhere. The problem is that precision doesn't guarantee answers, only better questions. If the intruder had scraped the doorframe with a tool, what tool leaves that signature? If they had filmed their own approach or the act itself, would they have left a digital trail? Some who watched the clips swore they saw a phone held at chest height during the patrol, the glow of a screen caught by a lens. Others saw only shadows wishing themselves into shape. Down the road, a sporting goods store's surveillance system added a riddle with tires. Around 2 a.m., roughly 2 hours before the attack, a sedan rolled into the lot, circled slowly, flashed its headlights here and there, and then parked in a corner where no one parks unless they're waiting or hiding. After a few minutes, it pulled onto US 287 and disappeared. Make of that what you will. Police released a still and a range of likely models, an early 2010s Nissan Altima, maybe an Infiniti, hoping someone would recognize a dent or a custom rim. If that car is the right car, the driver has never raised a hand to claim it. When a case refuses to hand over a face, people look for patterns they can hold. The outward turned foot became a talisman. Viewers scrubbed the clip frame by frame, compared the sway of the intruder's hips to their neighbors, ex-co-workers, teachers, even internet personalities who never set foot in Texas. The theory of a female suspect caught oxygen, then skepticism. The height estimates landed in the 5'6" to 5'9" range. Theories multiplied. None of them bought groceries. Through all of it, one observation felt less like speculation and more like gravity. This person wasn't improvising. Their calm wasn't the blankness of a lost thief. It was the rhythm of a metronome. They had selected a place that would be empty, chosen an hour when one person would arrive early, dressed in a way that would disarm suspicion, and created a stage that shouted burglary while quietly isolating the only witness who mattered. To understand how a hallway becomes a weapon, remember what gyms and boot camps are. Community held together by routines. People show up at the same time on the same days. The instructor unlocks the door, sets up cones, texts latecomers. The entire structure runs on predictability. Whoever walked those halls at 3:50 understood that predictability well enough to turn it into a window and then close it. Missy's students found her minutes before the hour the class usually began. It's a sentence that reads fast and lives slow. Some called 911. Some froze. Many of them had come to these classes because routine makes life manageable, because sweating together makes heavy things lighter. The hallway they knew as a pre-work ritual became a place they avoid describing out loud. The aftermath drew crowds, neighbors leaving flowers, friends hugging in the parking lot, reporters asking questions that sound generous only to microphones. Police collected thousands of tips. They followed leads until they turned into cul-de-sacs. They learned what all detectives eventually learn, that the public's appetite for answers is not the same as the world's supply of them. Community impact, the aftermath you don't see on tape. After the murder, the church and the fitness community had to rebuild ordinary life. Volunteers mapped blind spots, tightened door routines, and added lighting that no one had budgeted for. Missy's students kept the hour alive, meeting later for a while, raising funds for her daughters and insisting that routine could be reclaimed. Local reporting emphasized her humanity over the clip, fighting the algorithmic pull to turn a person into a thumbnail. Every case develops gravitational centers, people who orbit close enough to draw attention. In crimes involving spouses, families, or business partners, investigators will tell you there are standard checklists, not because loved ones are usually responsible, but because they are the people whose schedules intersect most. Missy's husband and family cooperated fully. Theories swarmed social media anyway because theories demand less evidence than empathy. The first big fork in the road was motive. If not theft, and by every measure it wasn't, then what? Stalking is a word that sits quietly in statistics until a story gives it a face. Someone fascinated by Missy's public role could have studied her routine, tested the building at odd hours, and prepared clothing designed to take identity off the table. It requires no complex conspiracy to acquire a fake police vest online and pair it with bargain bin tactical gear. It requires only intention. Another fork was sexual motive. Detectives did not emphasize it, and publicly available facts do not support it. The attack appears focused and instrumental, not prolonged. That points back to a personal grievance or an obsession transformed into a mission. Neither requires knowing the victim well. In the age of social media, well enough can be measured in likes and schedules. Then there is the idea that the intruder knew the building. People who spend time in churches will tell you they are labyrinths, storage rooms hidden behind stage doors, hallways that echo, entrances that don't look like entrances. The footage shows someone who knows how to make noise in a way that looks like randomness, but reads like testing. That suggests time spent learning or a walkthrough done before the stormy night, perhaps even in plain sight. We should talk about the outfit again, not for its shock value, but for its functions: disguise, authority projection, evidence control. A helmet hides hair, gloves erase fingerprints, a vest and loose clothing blur shoulder and hip lines. Many have pointed out that the intruder's build appears different from frame to frame, broader here, slimmer there, as if padding shifts under the gear. If that effect was intentional, then we are watching a costume designed to defeat human pattern recognition, which is, after all, what witnesses rely on when they try to remember a stranger. The car at the sporting goods lot remains a thorn with no rose. The driver could be a third-shift worker texting on a break. They could be a teenager practicing parking. They could be the intruder staging a pre-game lull before approaching the church. The headlight flashes feel theatrical. They might also be nothing. When investigators released the still, they took a calculated risk. You might pull in the right tip or bury the case under hundreds of wrong ones. They received thousands. In the absence of an arrest, the case slipped into a cruel phase that the families of unsolved crimes know by heart. Anniversaries marked by headlines without updates, community groups keeping the story visible, and a polished clip of an outward-turned foot played again, as if the 100th viewing might finally make the silhouette say a name. The paradox of video evidence is that it can be absolute and empty at once. You can know the exact posture of a stranger in a hallway and still know nothing about their life. What do we do with that? One answer is to keep the details unglamorous and stubborn. There is a time window. There are tool marks. There is a gait with a right foot that opens outward. There is an outfit that says, "Respect me," while behavior that says, "Believe I am clumsy." There is a vehicle of interest with a make-model range still broad enough to fill a freeway. None of this is folklore. All of it is real. Somewhere in that pile lives a human being who chose time, place, and theater, and who has watched the years pass without being named. Investigative pathways. What might break the case? Cold cases move when relationships shift and technology ages. Phones once unreadable become searchable. Cloud mirrors appear. Burner accounts slip and reuse a recovery email. Purchase trails can also help. Vests with police patches and specific tools leave brand patterns. And the vehicle remains a lever, a headlight receipt, a toll record, a co-worker who remembers a stormy 2 a.m. errand. These cases break by accumulation, not magic. If you sit with the footage long enough, you start to hear things that aren't there. The squeak of a boot, the static crackle of a radio that isn't connected to anyone, the storm saying, "No one is coming," which is exactly what the intruder needed it to say. CCTV is a liar about sound. It makes violence quiet and patience loud. That is part of why these images got under everyone's skin. The crime seems polite until it isn't. Missy's classes returned, changed but alive, because communities do not let one hallway become the last word. Her family built memorials in movement, scholarships, fundraisers, the stubborn everyday decision to keep showing up during the hour she used to claim from the dark. Investigators kept at it. Files were reopened with new tools. Leads cooled and cooled again. The case remained officially open, if unofficially unsatisfied. What should disturb us is not only what the camera shows, but what it cannot. The intruder had a plan and time and the patience to rehearse. They also had a mask made of expectations. We are conditioned to trust uniforms, to accept props that look official. The difference between an officer and a costume is paperwork and context. A dim hallway offers neither. If you take nothing else from this story, take this. Authority is not a font on a vest. Verify before you comply. And when your gut tells you that a label is doing too much work, step back into the light. We close where we began, with a corridor no one should have walked. The camera sees the shiny floor, the heavy vest, the outward-turned foot. It sees a person acting like a burglar while creating a vacuum where one meeting could happen without witnesses. It sees hours and minutes and distances between doors. It does not see names, it does not see why. Will this case be solved? It can be. Time is not kind to memory, but it is kind to relationships. People talk. Someone bragged on a bad night. Someone kept a trophy, digital or physical. Someone who once tolerated a secret has decided they no longer want to share oxygen with it. If that is you, if some detail in this story sours your stomach because it brushes against something you know, call it in. You can give a family sleep. You can take a corridor out of reruns. As for the footage, it did shake the world, but not because it was gory or fast. It shook us because it showed the banality of a plan carried out at walking speed. A person with a costume, a building with camera coverage but no gatekeeper, a schedule so predictable it became a map, and a community that learned, the hardest possible way, how thin the wall is between ordinary and irreversible. Missy Bevers should have led a workout that morning. She should have posted a sweaty group photo and joked about thunder burpees. She should have driven home with the post-storm sunrise burning off the last of the night. Instead, we have a clip without a face. We have a city that won't let go. And we have the hope, fragile, stubborn, that pixels can outlast lies. If you have credible information connected to the events of April 18, 2016 in Midlothian, contact the Midlothian Police Department or your local law enforcement. And to everyone who wakes up before dawn to build community in quiet spaces, be visible, be cautious, and know that there are more of you than there are of the people who walk like this. Cautionary lessons, from a corridor to the rest of us. If you open spaces before dawn, add small layers of friction. Arrive with a partner when possible, vary arrival patterns, keep exterior lights active, and verify uniforms rather than trusting labels. Safety and warmth coexist. Missy's project, making people stronger together, doesn't end here. The camera gave us an outline. A community can still supply the name.